Okay, so I just wanted to show you a few other things that you can add in here if you'd like. What's a really neat way to do the street, if you wanted to do a road, go ahead and take um, your rectangle tool, go ahead and draw out just a little thin um, rectangle here. You can double click in your fill too if you want to do a color picker instead of choosing from your color swatches. That's just an FYI. So if you wanted to do that, just double click right in that fill. You can move this around, choose the color that you want, and it'll fill it with that color. So I just did a thin little rectangle here. You know, there's no real perspective other than the street view. And then you can go ahead and choose your line segment tool, and that's again in your shapes. If you don't see this tool in your toolbar, go ahead and click on these three little dots down below where it says Edit Toolbar. And if it's in here, all you need to do is click and drag it into your toolbar to get that tool. So you might not necessarily have it in there, but that's where you would look if you can't see it on in your toolbar. Go ahead and choose that, and we're going to do a switch here. So there's no fill, but you're going to have a stroke of white. So add white right here. You can bring up your swatches to easily see where that white fill is too. And then what we're going to do, so your stroke is white, fill is none. We're going to start at the left side of your screen of your artboard, click and drag and hold that shift key down. Oops, as you're doing that, let me do that again. Click and drag, hold shift key down. That'll snap it into a perfect horizontal line, and let go when you're done on the very right side. So you can see it's a solid line. So then we want to go up to window and choose stroke. With that line selected, in your stroke panel box, this is where you would choose the thickness, the thinness, whatever you kind of want to do. I'm going to do like a 1 point. Actually, I'll do a 2 point. And then at the very bottom here, it says dash line. Check on that dash line and look what happens. It gives you a nice road line with all the dashes, which is kind of cool. All right, another thing that I want to show you, and I'm going to actually open up an older demo that I did because it's a little bit more detailed so you guys can see how this could look, you know, just in a different style. And just like a quick tip too, before I get into the details here, if you hold down, if you're zoomed in and you're working on these details, if you hold down the shift key as you're zoomed in, excuse me, you get this little hand grabber, and you can actually, as you hold down the space key, spacebar key, you can actually click and drag onto your artboard to kind of work around your page. So you don't have to keep zooming out and zooming in. Just kind of a little FYI there. So what I wanted to show you here, this is one that I did for a demo last mod, how to create, once you get your landscape in and all of your details, there's options in here that you can do to make it look a little bit more snazzier. So there's a gradient option. If you go up to window and you choose gradients and, you know, play around with this, it's kind of cool. And the panel you'll see is kind of a defaulted black and white. Let me get rid of these panels here. So once you choose a color for your, say, your sky or your grass, you'll see it, when you select it, you'll see it in the color fill. So all you need to do to create a really cool gradient here is either drag from your color fill once you select your object, or even in here in your gradient, or even here in your swatches, you can drag that color fill actually from your gradient into, so click and drag and drop right into this little field here where it shows from white to black. And what we're going to do, and you can see the blue is here, we want to get rid of this black. So we're going to go click and drag it down so it eliminates it. And this is where you can actually, you know, kind of choose your gradient. You know, you might want to have it real light. You might want to have it darker. You know, this is the gradient location marker where you can kind of play around with that. You also have different types of how the gradient kind of disperses. So right now it's on linear gradient, so it goes from one to the side and the next. And you can flip these too. You can go, say if you wanted to start with the blue and then go to the white. And you could even do drag another color in there and do kind of darker on each side. You know, there's all kinds of different ways you could do that. But you can choose which start of which color starts first. But you also have different orientations of your gradient. So go ahead and click on this radial gradient and you'll see that it's, instead of going from one side to the next, it's actually determining your gradient from a circular point of view. So I'm going to flip these and you'll see a little bit better too. It's going to go from, and I pull these down, white on the inside to dark on the outside. So it's kind of cool. It's a neat effect. You can do this with your grass. Let's go ahead and drag this down into here, and I'm going to get rid of my blue. And make this, if you want to change your color, you can drag and drop the color right over top of that stopper is what they're called, to affect that change. So it's kind of nice. It gives it a little bit of a different, unique look, almost like a three-dimensional look. I wouldn't, you know, for this, I would just leave it for the background, background details, maybe even the trees, you know, kind of play around with that. You can do for the houses too, but you know, if you want to keep it simple, like the flat look on the houses and then the flat look on everything else, but the background is kind of an interesting aesthetic. Also, so play around with the gradients. If you're really familiar with the pen tool, or if you want to play around with the pen tool, I added these little shingle details with the pen tool. And that's actually, you know what, I think I did this with the line segment tool. Yeah, I did this with line segment tool. So I just did the line segments and added this. An easy way to also do this is using the pen tool. All you would need to do is click, and it's a little difficult of a tool to figure out, but where you're clicking is where your lines are going to be set. And then all you would have to do is choose a stroke and not a fill. And when you're done, you can click off of it. So that's kind of the way to use the pen tool. The line segment tool is just how I showed you here, where you're just setting one line and then the next line. So it's kind of a little bit more work. And it's not a closed shape, just like an FYI. A closed shape you can fill, an open shape you can't. So that's kind of the details there. Okay, and as you can see here, I did some really aesthetic, like abstract trees. You could do that with your, if you have your rounded corner square. If you don't see that, again, click on your three little buttons here to edit your toolbar. And I just kind of made these shapes to look like trees, added my trunks to them with a rectangle tool there, and just kind of made it look, you know, very similar. Now, I also just copied what I did here and pasted it here, so that's kind of why you see the duplicate. You can go ahead and change those details, you know, if you want to. If you're doing a duplicate, maybe you want to change some things up so it doesn't look exactly alike, but just have fun with it, you know, just play around with the tools, the color swatch panel box. You guys are learning how all of this works. So have fun with it, set your mood, you know, decide what kind of mood that you want to be. Is it daytime? Do you want to do, you know, a nighttime mood? You can change the mood very easily by just, you know, changing the color. I think I have a, let me see here real quick. Okay, just a quick little suggestion too. Properties panels is nice because you can control a lot of what's going on with your settings here. So if you go up to window, you can choose properties, and I can see here that it's really light in the background. So I think, oh, there must be an opacity set. So what I mean by that is, and I can see here, I have a 20% opacity set for my background. So that just means the lower it goes, the more opaque that it is. So it can go to transparent. I want to show you just at full capacity what the mood could look like here, or opacity, I should say. So 100% opacity would change this greatly. So you could kind of play around with that too. This is also where you can see the appearance, the fill stroke, set your gradient, alignment, all that good stuff. All right, hopefully this helps you guys.